Oh, really? Oh, really? Really? Oh, I think we're on. Oh. Hi, everybody. How are you? Welcome aboard. I'm glad you're here with me. Happy Friday to you all. I've had such a tall task because I've been trying to keep up with all of these Senate hearings. And I feel like I'm just getting bum rushed by them all because I'm trying to keep up with them all, but I can't because I'm rushing home from work and I'm running to turn on the hearings. But all at the same time, they were doing confirmation hearings for Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel and another round with RFK Jr. And I wanted to kind of give you my 2 cents on them, but I haven't seen them all. I watched in fact, I think I watched all of Kash Patel's hearings today or yesterday, Thursday. I saw a few snippets of Tulsi Gabbard. I didn't see any more of RFK. I saw the first round, but I think he came back for a second round. I'm not sure how that's all going to go. I'm kind of thinking Tulsi is going to make it. I think Kash is probably going to make it. I just don't know about RFK. We shall see. But since I spent time watching all of the Kash Patel hearing, I want to talk mostly about that. But before I get to that, I want to get to what I saw of Tulsi Gabbard, which wasn't much. I saw her face questioning from maybe 2 senators, maybe 3. But what caught my attention when I was looking for highlights was these senators who were asking her about Edward Snowden. Now, I've talked about Edward Snowden in the past. I've written about Edward Snowden in the past and how I feel Edward Snowden is an American hero. He should be given a ticker tape parade down Broadway in New York City, if you ask me. Instead, he had to flee to Russia to preserve his neck. And there was a time that I believe... Pardon me just a moment. I almost fell over. Hey, this is real live TV or video or whatever you call it. I dropped one of my lights fell over. Sorry. There was a time when I'm fairly confident that Tulsi Gabbard might have sung a different tune than what I heard her singing at this committee meeting yesterday. These things are frustrating because these nominees are on the hot seat. They're trying to get confirmed, and they all have these razor-thin margins. And so they have to speak in couched terms almost. They have to be defensive. They have to give these legalistic answers to the Democrats on the committee anyway. It's often hard to get a straight answer from them, quite frankly. Because all of the questions from the Democratic side of the dais are gotcha questions. They're just trying to trap them so that they can use it as ammo against them later on the full Senate floor. And these nominees are aware of this. Tulsi's aware of it. RFK's aware of it. He really got into it with Bernie Sanders. I did see a clip of that. Kash is aware of it. And so they're just having to play these games of verbal hide and seek with one another because they kind of have to play the game in order to get confirmed. It's just a fact of life. I get it. I understand it. I still find it distasteful. But there were a couple of senators, one of them Senator Young of Indiana, who is a Republican, who is most definitely anti-Edward Snowden. He believes him to be a traitor. I do not. And he was grilling Tulsi on past comments she has apparently made about Snowden, where she was far more conciliatory toward him. And now, pardon me if you will, now this senator succeeded in getting her to say that Edward Snowden broke the law. Technically, maybe he did. But what we have just an explosion of in the United States since the time of 9/11, in my opinion, and the Bush era where we had the Patriot Act passed, and this just unleashed a barrage of privacy concerns for the American people and a complete and utter disregard, I believe, for the Fourth Amendment. This is a problem with things such as data collection by governmental agencies on the American people and a complete and utter loss of our privacy. Maybe not complete, but a great loss of our privacy to the state. This is a problem, and Tulsi knows it's a problem, and this problem was exposed to a great degree by Edward Snowden, who I believe did the American people a great service, and he should be rewarded, not just pardoned, but he should be rewarded for his work on behalf of the American people. He pulled back the curtain, if you will, and he showed the American people what the American government is doing to us in terms of the violation of our privacy and our constitutional rights. And that's a good thing. That is a commendable thing. After all, let's not forget, it's administration after administration, particularly the Obama administration, which told us, if you see something, say something. Actually, I believe it was Janet Reno with Bill Clinton's administration. She was the Attorney General from the state of Florida, I believe she hailed. But she was Clinton's Attorney General, and she told us, if you see something, say something. Well, Snowden saw something, and he said something, and because he saw something and said something, he had to leave the country. Edward Snowden, and I won't get into it because I've done past videos on Snowden, but in my estimation, he's a hero. I think Tulsi Gabbard probably knows that. She's not saying it in the committee. If Tulsi Gabbard said before the Senate committee that she believed Edward Snowden was a hero, there's no way in hell she'd be confirmed, and she knows it, and that's why she can't say it. So I don't know if you could justify lying or being intentionally deceitful or what have you. I still would support Tulsi. I think that she's got the gift of being a pretty good director. Although I have to tell you, the very post that she would occupy is something I have no use for, because she is. I have no use for the CIA. I have no use for the FBI. More about that in a minute. And she would basically be over the CIA. I think her title is Director of National Intelligence or something along those lines. I don't even think these agencies have a constitutional right to exist. This is the deep state. This is something that might not be so offensive depending on which administration is in power. But if the wrong administration is in power, nothing good can ever come of it on behalf of the American people. The very fact that organizations like the CIA exist is, in my opinion, a de facto war against the very citizens they deign to protect, because by their very nature they are cloaked in darkness. They have no constitutional right to exist, as far as I know, as far as I believe. And they can violate our rights. There's so much precedent for this. And there's very good arguments to be made for CIA involvement in all sorts of unbelievably illegal activity, such as the JFK assassination, the RFK assassination, the MLK assassination, and on and on and on it goes. But let's not get sidetracked with that. I want to get to Kash Patel. And I like Kash Patel, but I have maintained in a previous video I did several months ago, maybe a year or two ago, that I don't believe the FBI should even exist. I don't think we need an FBI. I like Kash Patel personally. I don't know him personally, but from what I know of him, he seems like a fairly sound individual. But when it comes to law enforcement, folks, look at it. We have local police departments. We have county sheriffs and their deputies. We have state police. We have all of these police agencies already in operation. Why do we need another bureaucratic organization, this one with badges? What is the justification for the FBI? And it's not that old. Who gave us the FBI? I believe it was Hoover. Not Hoover. It was Hoover was director. I believe it was Truman, if I'm not mistaken. I know Truman gave us the CIA, so the CIA is not that old. It's less than 100 years old. Truman served in the 40s after Roosevelt. So we existed for a long, long time, almost 200 years, the better part of 150 years, without these agencies. And I'm not saying the FBI has not done some good things, but, overall, what does the FBI do that other law enforcement agencies that already exist could not do? So I don't agree with even the existence, quite frankly, of the FBI, the CIA, the DNI, the NSA, all of these agencies. I just don't agree with them. I think they are extra constitutional, and I believe we have enough intrusion and violation of privacy already. This only exacerbates the problem as far as I'm concerned. That being said, were I a senator on the committee, obviously I'd have to vote up or down on Kash Patel. I think he's a fairly sound individual. I think as far as if we're going to have an FBI, I would rather have him than somebody like a Christopher Wray or somebody like Robert Mueller or James Comey or J. Edgar Hoover. So hopefully he can do some reform in the agencies. Hopefully he can reduce the size and the scope of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and come to a determination that we don't need that many agents. I hope this is a trend. I would like to see less FBI agents, less CIA agents, less IRS agents. I'd like to see no EPA, no Department of Education. I would like to no FEMA. We don't need FEMA. We need to start trimming back the government. I think Trump's got a pretty good jump on this. I just hope that he can continue this good trend that he started. But one of the problems that I had with Kash Patel that really stuck out to me, and he was repeatedly asked about this in committee before the Senate committee, and that has to do with the FISA courts and FISA warrants. Now, FISA warrants are a relatively new thing. They came about as a result of the George W. Bush's administration after 9/11, and they established these FISA courts. And this is where you just basically think you've got somebody that you need to go get a warrant for immediately. So you go and get a FISA, perhaps a 702 FISA warrant to go and apprehend these people. But what's happened is, predictably, an abuse of FISA warrants with them being used against American citizens. I don't believe there should be FISA warrants whatsoever, because where you have them, you're naturally going to have an excess and an abuse for which they were intended. It's kind of like the old saying, what is the saying? Something about the best of intentions. Somebody help me out in the comments. Like the Patriot Act. Sounds great, but the devil's in the details. We never should have passed the Patriot Act. The same with the FISA warrants. Ron Paul was totally against them from the beginning, as was I, and I still am. I don't believe they should exist. If you've got to go to get a warrant for someone's arrest, then you should have to go through the procedures that were available to you prior to the establishment of the FISA warrants. That's what I got to say about that. Now, I'm going to try. I'm really trying to balance work. I got a job, and I'm really trying. All I'm doing is working, sleeping a little bit, and taking in all of these hearings because I'm fascinated by them. I want to watch them. And I'll get caught up on them, and I'll report to you what what my feelings are about them anyway. But I want to get off of that, and I want to touch on something. I want to totally shift gears on you here, and I want to talk about something that is a little more personal to me, that has nothing to do with politics, and I hope you'll bear with me. As you know, Wednesday night, we had a very tragic occurrence on the Potomac River in Washington, where a Black Hawk helicopter collided over the river with an American Airlines commuter jet. I don't have the exact numbers of the fatalities, but nobody survived apparently, and that's no surprise, because from what I've seen the video footage, it's horrific. This Black Hawk helicopter, for whatever reason, entered the airspace of the jet, which was coming in for a landing. I understand the plane was only a few hundred feet above the ground when it was struck by this Black Hawk helicopter and essentially cut in half. And both aircraft plunged into the icy Potomac River Wednesday evening. And of course, there were no survivors. Just a tragic thing. And of course, you immediately begin to speculate as to what caused this, and if there was any foul play, or if it's an act of terrorism and what have you. You're told quickly by the media and by the government that this was simply an accident. But I just have to tell you, anymore this day and age, it always raises an eyebrow, and you're always suspicious when the government tells you that something is an accident. In my gut, I believe it probably was just an accident. I don't know. I'm not in a position to know, but I believe that probably this Black Hawk helicopter was just off course. It was on supposedly, from what I'm hearing from multiple outlets, it was on a training mission. And it just was severely off course and collided with this commuter jet and caused this terrible, terrible crash. It's just a really sad thing. A lot of young people were on board this aircraft, and they perished. But I've been thinking about that terrible incident since it happened, and it evoked a memory that I want to share with you in this video. I've got a really peculiar and odd memory. I remember odd things for some reason. And other things that I should remember, I don't remember. It's crazy. I can't tell you what I had for dinner last night. Well, actually, I can. I had chicken. But I remember quirky things. I remember my childhood telephone number growing up. I remember the telephone number of one of my friends growing up. I could dial the number right now. I still remember it. I remember my college mailbox address. I remember the address of the first apartment I ever rented when I was 20 years old. I remember the tag number of my first car. How about that? I remember it. Really weird, right? Well, this awful crash evoked a memory that I carry with me to this day. I don't remember the date. I do know it was in the month of January, and I remember that it was in 1982, and Ronald Reagan was our president, when we had another catastrophe, an air catastrophe, with an airplane that crashed into the Potomac River. I believe it was Air Florida. That part I don't remember, the airline. I think it was Air Florida. And the aircraft was lifting off from what is now Reagan National Airport, which I have read is a kind of a short runway, and it's just surrounded by the winding Potomac River, which in January is icy, as you might suspect. But this particular jet was having problems with de-icing. They have to de-ice the wings in bad weather, and it was really bad weather that January day. It was sleeting, and the water was freezing, and the weather was terrible. and ice was developing on the wings of the jets that were taking off from what is now Reagan National. And so this Air Florida jet took off from the airport, but it could not gain sufficient altitude because of the icing problem. And instead of rising in the air, it began to descend toward the river until it made impact with the Potomac River and crashed. And I can see those images in my mind just like it was yesterday. And many of you may remember this. You could see the jet in the water sinking, and you've got to think nobody's going to survive this. But people did survive. And I can remember after what seemed like an eternity, it couldn't have been that long, as the jet obviously had broken up, there were people that began to surface in the icy waters of the Potomac River, and they were just fighting for their life. I can't remember how many survivors there were. I also remember, thanks to the black boxes, the last words of the pilot and the co-pilot. And the co-pilot said to the pilot, "We're going down." And the pilot replied, "I know it." But as I watched this scene live on television back in 1982, I'll never forget, it's burned into my memory. I was 21 years old. No, I was 20 years old, about to turn 21 years old. And this woman appeared above the surface of the Potomac River. You just saw her head, and I can see the eyeglasses on her face. And pretty soon she began to flail about in the water, fighting for her life. Now you got to understand, it's not that she's just underwater trying to get air, but she's in ice water, literally ice water. You can't survive this for more than a few minutes, I'm thinking. And she was flailing in the water, trying to live, fighting for her life, which she was quickly losing the battle. There were rescue operations underway, but of course this is happening so quickly that, you know, the first responders had, as far as I can recollect, had not even appeared on the scene yet. But there were observers of this horrific scene standing on the banks of the Potomac River. And while these people stood there and watched this carnage in front of them in the river, they were seeing, some of them began to see this woman fighting for her life. And all of a sudden, you see this one man bolt from the banks of the Potomac River, and he dove in and he starts swimming as fast as he can out to this woman, and he got to her and he grabbed her and he began to swim holding her back to the banks of the river, and he saved her life. It was miraculous. Now, the part that I'm impressed by on my account is the fact that all these years later, it was 1982, 92, 02, 12, this is over 40 years ago, folks. My goodness. It was 43 years ago. I still remember that man's name. He is an American hero by the name of Lenny Skutnik. Skutnik. Leonard Skutnik. Lenny Skutnik. I believe it was the next night, it may have been a couple of nights later, when Reagan gave his annual State of the Union address, and he had Leonard Skutnik in the gallery of the Capitol building on the House floor with both chambers of Congress present. And he recognized this unassuming, normal, simple-looking man, Lenny Skutnik, and he saluted him as being the hero that he absolutely was. I will never forget the name Lenny Skutnik. As a matter of fact, I used to do a lot of writing of short stories, and in fact, the first book I ever wrote, where's my book? Oh, it's right here up top. This is the first book I ever wrote. The title of it is Real Men Past Kidney Stones. All the books I've written are books of fiction, except this one. This was my first collection of short stories. I enjoyed writing that. I don't think the story of Lenny Skutnik made my book, but I did write about it, and I remember saying in the essay that I wrote, Lenny, I will never forget you, and I haven't. Lenny Skutnik, and I'm telling you this story because I want you to remember Lenny Skutnik. And when I was considering him last evening, I got on the internet to try and look him up. And you can find an account of the story on the internet. But whatever happened to Lenny Skutnik, I have no idea. I don't know what he did for a living, but I suspect that after things died down after a few days, whatever job he had, I suspect he just went back to doing his job, minding his business, taking care of whatever family he had at the time, and going about his life. And all these years later, maybe he's retired and enjoying his retirement. He may have already died. I just don't know. But you never heard from him again. I don't think anybody did a movie about him. I don't think anybody wrote a book about him, not to my knowledge anyway. One guy wrote an essay about him. But I'm just struck by the fact that this normal, everyday, working, anonymous, unknown American became in a split second a life-saving hero. Isn't that a great story? And isn't that a great attitude for all of us to have? Because I don't know where you are in your life, but maybe you think at times that you're not accomplishing anything in your life, but you never know when fate might meet you and give you the opportunity to be somebody's hero. I don't mean to sound corny with this video, but you know what? I don't know if you purposely start looking for a way to be a hero, these things just seem to happen in a moment, you know. But he is forever sealed in all of eternity. Lenny Skutnik is as a hero, because he absolutely is a hero. Maybe you can be somebody's hero today. I don't know. Maybe there's somebody that needs a hero. Only you can find out if you try. I don't know if you have to seek out being a hero or if it just happens in the moment. I think that's probably what happens. But I just wanted to make this video to do a little shallow dive onto the Kash Patel circus. And I just wanted to pause and take a moment to reflect on this terrible tragedy where so many people lost their lives. I think it's about 60 or 70 people who lost their lives. But it caused me to remember what I vowed to myself that day 42 years ago. I remember specifically saying to the television, Lenny Skutnik, I will never forget you. And when I wrote my essay about him, that was a line. I said, Lenny Skutnik, I will never forget you. And just like I will never forget to Lake and Raleigh, I've pledged that. I'll never forget Lake and Raleigh. I will never forget Lenny Skutnik. And now that perhaps you didn't know that story, or perhaps you did know the story, but you had forgotten Lenny Skutnik, I hope you will remember this great American hero, Lenny Skutnik. With a name like that, how could you forget it, right? It's not like Lenny Smith or Lenny Jones. How many Skutniks have you ever met? So that's a name worth remembering. So there you have it. Hey, look, thanks for joining me. Give me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe down below if you would, please. All the relevant links are down below. Buy me a coffee if you would. That would be fantastic, because I love coffee. Thanks for joining me, everybody. This is Trailer Trash Tim. Have a great weekend, and I will In all likelihood, I might pop in over the weekend. I don't know. Otherwise, I should see you on Monday. Everybody have a great one, and I'll talk to you soon.